What's up, guys? We are back. Why do I have glasses? No, I was just playing. Let me take these off. All right, we are back, and we're jumping into reactive programming slash combine because it's actually pretty dope. It's pretty cool. It's a really good thing to know, and it's really powerful to have in your apps. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. We're gonna be playing around with little football or soccer API. All right. So the first thing I want to know, what the heck is reactive programming? You might have heard of it before. You might have heard of things of Combine, such as Combine, RX Swift, and those are the main ones to be honest. And RX Swift was really popular. It's super popular, and it still is because RX has a bunch of support for different languages. So you might see it a lot in like production because the companies they like to. You can have RX Java and RX Swift. So your apps, your Android and your Apple app, kind of have similar reactive paradigms. But then Apple introduced Combine in like 2019. It was a solution because before that there wasn't really, it was just RX Swift. And how does reactive programming work? You could think of it as you create, well, at least in Combine, you create a publisher, and whenever data is sent from the publisher, whenever it's published, anything that's subscribed to it will be notified, and if whatever code you write will be triggered. And that's the power in that is if you have a bunch of network calls or just things in your app that happen asynchronously, you can really chain them together, and that's kind of why it's called reactive, and that's how the data flows. Like it's like a domino, where one thing happens and another thing can happen, another thing can happen, and yeah, that's more or less the thinking behind it. Now let's go through an example, and we're gonna start off with a basic example, making a network request with Combine. And so I'm gonna create a new project. We're gonna call this World Cup scorers or leaders. And we'll do SwiftUI next, next, or create. Cool. And what do we need now? So let me just show you guys the API we're working with. All right, so this is the API we are working with. It's a football API or soccer, depending on where you're from. And if you have any sense of culture. No, I'm joking. All right. And this is a pretty cool API. I'm on a 14-day trial though. You have to pay. Yeah, you can just sign up for a 14-day trial and you can go through and you got to do this by 14 days. Or you could pay 11 euros a month, depending on what you want to build. And we get access to all these competitions. We're going to be doing the World Cup because why not? I mean, that's probably the best. Or you could do Champions. But we're going to do the World Cup. And yeah, so let's jump into that. And actually, let me put this back up. So yeah, you're gonna sign up for the API, and there's documentation here, and you can really kind of depending on what you want and what you're building. Just gonna use the top goal scorers API, but you can get the match lineup, this match commentary, groups. You can get a whole bunch of different data depending on what you want to build. In our apps, or in our app, we're gonna be doing the top goal scorers, and this is the endpoint. So that's what we're gonna be using. Anything else I'm missing? And for a quick demo, I believe if you paste this into your thing, you'll get this. And that's because you have to replace it with your actual key and your secret. And one thing I always encourage developers to use is Postman or just get acquainted with because on the job you will most likely be using this. And for example, here is this code. I pasted it in. And ID one is actually, if you go here, it'll tell you where. Because the competition ID is for like what league. And yeah, you see here, this is for the Bundesliga. So we don't want that. And we wanted the World Cup, which I do have in where is it? Here we go. I believe if you open up this tab, yeah. So this is the ID, and I believe if you go back to Postman, that's what I have, right? Yeah, 362. If you want to change it, you can. Okay, where is Postman? And if you just send it, it tells you the top goal scorer, which was Mbappe, right? Yep, Kylian Mbappe. Let's change it to Copa America. Or do they have champions? Let's change it to champions. Let's see who's the top goal scorer. I have no idea. I haven't been keeping up. Champions, the top goal scorer is Luke De Jong. I don't know how to say his name. He's 7 goals. Okay. So yeah, that's just something to play around with before you jump into Xcode. Because it's good to have an understanding of just that you're making the network request right, your keys are working, and also one thing I didn't hit on is it's good to analyze your data. And let's change this back to the World Cup because we're gonna have to decode this data, right? So we kind of have to parse this JSON. So using Postman can really help you with the creating of the models that you're gonna use to parse the JSON. Another thing you could do, which now because of ChatGPT, is you could just copy this in and tell it to create you a model in Swift for this JSON, which is fairly it's you can do it, right? But I feel like it's always good to just go by yourself. It's a good learning practice, and then after you know how to do it, then you can just start using ChatGPT. But at the beginning, you should probably, try it by yourself. All right, so what are we gonna do first? And I am gonna be using the content view here. And let me just maximize this. We'll come back to Postman in a bit. And let me minimize myself. Should I put on the glasses for the video? No, I won't. All right, so final class. I'm gonna create an API service. We're just, we're gonna make this very clean because we're using combine. We're gonna be reactive. Clean, but it's all gonna be in the same file. So just that'll be the only thing. So we're gonna create an API service. And in here, this is where we're gonna create the code to write the network request. And what do we want to do? So you want to create a call fetch players. I mean a function call fetch instead of go. A function called fetch players, and this is going to return in any publisher with an array of players. We haven't created that model and an error. Oops. Okay. And now let's create our models because we're going to need that. So we're going to need to stand by the JSON or put this JSON next to us. So what do we need here? Let's create a struct, call it JSON body. Okay, and in here we have a data. And this data is of type something. And this data is an object. And the object is, let's see, let's call this JSON data for now. I might change this. The object is, so we're going to say let top scorers, and this is lowercase, so you can keep it low. You have two options here. You can keep it lowercase, or you can convert it to camel case and then just use the coding keys. We'll just keep it same, and the last thing we need to do is create the model for the actual players. Top scorer. And for this, what do we want? So we're gonna grab the goals. So we're gonna say goals is an int, assists is an int. We're just gonna grab this information in case we want to use it in the future. And we're gonna say let team equal team, and let player, oh, my RAM. Let player equal player. We will create these models in a second. And what we can do here is we can create the models within this model here. So we'll create this player. This one is just a name. We don't care about the ID. Name is a string. And I'm just gonna copy this, paste this, and I believe for the team is just a name as well. And then here we do an array of top score, JSON response. I'm gonna call it this, and then JSON data. Okay, and now we can call array of top scores here. Oh man, the tricky part about this is you won't know if it's wrong until we finish our combine stuff, but we'll worry about that when we get there. Now for the combine, we need a few things. We need to create our URL. So let's guardlet URL equals, we're going to follow best practices in guardlet here. So URL string, and then we need to grab our string. And for this string, it'll be this. Or you could grab it from Postman. It'll be this. We can actually let me just copy this. Competition ID. Competition is of int. Alright. Just to make this more reusable, we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna have our key here, and then our secret here, secrets. And we're just gonna use some string interpolation. We'll pass the key here, and then we need to pass the secret. All right, and the last thing we need to do is we need to wrap up the guardlet. So what do we want to do here? We want to throw, and we need to throw a fail with an error, and we'll just say URL error, bad URL. And I believe, wait, let's say return. And we need to erase to any publisher. There we go. And now we can create our data task. So to do this, we're using URL session. Since this is created by Apple, they wrapped it in URL session. So we're going to do URL session.shared, and we want to say data task with publisher. So you have two options with combined. You could do this one, which is more simpler. And then you have the data task publisher, which gives you a lot more functionality, and it's more powerful. So we're gonna go with that one because why not learn the better one? And what else do we need? So this is pretty much it. Now we need to map the information we're getting in here. And there's quite a few ways you can map this. You can just call map and then / data, and it'll map that data for you. And once you have the data, you need to decode it. And we're gonna decode it using JSON response.self. The decoder is JSON decoder. And one thing I realized about these models is we did not conform to decodable. Shout out to whoever caught that. You always want to make sure you conform to decodable. And then we can map, because we want to return the array of top scores, right? If we return this here now, we would get the JSON body response, and that's returning this object, which is just going to have the data attribute inside. So we don't want that. So we're gonna call .map, and we can say $0. We can grab the data, and this data is different from this data. The only reason this shows up as data is because of what we called it, right? Because if I change it there, it changes, right? So that's just one thing I wanted to note. And we'll say top scorers. The last thing you need to call is erase to any publisher. And now we have the publisher built, and all we have to do is return it. So this just converts the publisher to any publisher, kind of extrapolating it a bit. And that's why we have the erase to any publisher here. And so this looks like it might be running. It might be ready to test. You might be ready to put it for the test. The thing, what we have to do now is call this. So we're gonna say on appear. On appear, what do we want to do? We want to call our API service. Dot fetch players. What was the competition name again, or number? It was, let's see, 362. Okay. 362. And this will return a publisher. And they want to say publisher, receive. We actually want to say sync. Completion. We can switch on the completion. And this kind of lets you know when it's when the publisher's done. And here, this is error. Print error dot localize description. Score errors. I had to think about how to spell that. Print scorers, and then print completion. The last or the most important thing you need to do when you're using combine is you need to store it somewhere. You need to store it in a token or subscriptions. And the way you do that in combine, if you're using it in a view, you need to do the at state wrapper. And the way this works is a set any cancelable, and we just declare empty set of any cancelable. Cool, and then we just call that here, and it should be with an S. Some people call this cancellables, tokens, subscriptions. It's up to you, it's kind of preference. And to see if this is running, we can open up the terminal and let's open up the canvas. Run the preview. We'll see if we had an error. Oh, we have an error. Oh, actually, we didn't put our API keys. So, of course, we have an error. So, where is Postman? Post Malone. Okay, let's try one more time. No, Xcode, don't do this to me. Secret key. Okay. Oh, I changed this to data. I forgot you can't really change this to data because unless you have the ability to change your backend, you can't do this. I was just using an example to make sure you guys knew that this was different from this. And there we go. We made it. We made it. Now let's try to clean this up so we can do a final class because typically you'll have this in like a view model and we'll mark this observable. So let's clean this up. at state var ViewModel ViewModel. Okay. Okay. Let's see. We'll call this top scores equal an array of top scores. What else do we need? And what we can do here, to be honest, is func fetch top scores. And here we can call this code. And then just one up here, we'll call VM or ViewModel dot top score or fetch top scores. All right, now we cleaned up this code fairly well, and let's see if it is running actually. So let's resume the preview. Yep, still working. And we get this finish. So we get this finish here, and that's from this case here. Because when the publisher finishes, this completion is called. And this is just every time it receives a new value. All right. Now let's create a list for each view model, top scores, score. We're going to say text. Let's put this in an H stack. Text score dot no wait, I think it's player dot name. And for the ID, we can we'll have to do player dot name since we know those aren't duplicate, or you can make it identifiable. And now, will this work? I believe we might have to. We can call receive dispatch queue dot main. Since we're updating our UI, I believe this is why we need to. This is what we need to call in order for the UI to show. Well, actually, disregard that. It's not showing because we never updated our UI. So we can say top scores equals scores. And this requires us to use self, and we'll use unowned self to avoid any retainment cycles. There we go. And I actually don't like the way list looks here, so we can get rid of the list. Kylian Mbappe! And let's do a spacer, text. What is this? Oh, score dot goals. Eight goals. Oh, we need to embed this in a scroll view. There we go. And you can make this even nicer. You can put an image here. Should I do that? It would look, it would look nice, right? But we're trying to learn combine. So I'm not gonna do it, but if you guys want to, you can put a little image here. And if you want to as well, we can embedded in a navigation stack. And we can go on navigation title, World Cup 2022. Cool. And you guys can feel free to adapt this project to your needs. You could one cool thing you could probably do is just have a bunch of competitions and call the API. Oh, that could be a good app, or that could be a good portfolio project. You could just have a list of competitions and just have the top scorers in each of them. Make this look nicer. You could either store the images of these people or make like a call to some API or some library that gives you an image. I didn't know Giroud had 4 goals in this World Cup. Not bad. France should have won, man. I don't know. No, but good for Messi. Good. It's Messi. He's a legend, so it's good for him. But all right, y'all. Enough of me blabbering. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you got used to Combine and working with the API. If you have any questions, drop it down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'll be diving in more deeply to Combine. Maybe I'll use this project as a template. Although probably not because my trial is gonna run out, and maybe somebody's gonna steal these keys. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and see you on the next one.